today. Before we get started, I want to just go over a few meeting norms. I see some new faces. I went over meeting norms of what to expect from my town hall meetings during our first meeting, which was December 22nd. So I just want to briefly go over a few items. So all is welcomed. You are welcome to videotape the meetings. Feel free to. I ask that you share them with your family and friends. Some folks are unable to make it to the meeting. And so the more that we can share our information, the better for our community. The second thing is that I ask for us to always be respectful. We may not agree all the time, but we need to be respectful of each other's thoughts, opinions, and concerns. Hopefully this will never happen, but I need to say it. If something happens and we become unacceptable behavior, I will kindly ask that person to step out, and I'll speak to that person. If not, then I'll just call the meeting and then we can leave. I'm not going to subject myself or any other guest to poor behavior. Also, on your table, you'll notice comment cards. Of course, I don't pretend to know all of the answers to your questions. So if I do not have an answer for you, or if you want to follow up with a concern that you don't want to share publicly, please fill out a card. There's some all around the room. If you don't have one, if you're sitting to the side, somebody in front may have one, or have a couple extras over here. What you can do is put your name, contact information, and your comments. And so something I learned from the first meeting, to make the cards a little bit bigger. So these are a little bit bigger, and I'm getting rid of the smaller ones. I really would appreciate it if you have an email address, so include your email address. It helps me to keep track of my responses. All right. Well, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. I am excited. We took the oath of office December the 3rd. 2014, and since that time I've had the opportunity to really hit the ground running. We have great staff down in La Plata at the county office, and I've learned that if you have any questions that need to be answered, if I don't know the answers, I have a whole host of staff that I can use as a resource. So I'm really excited about that. Before you leave, please make sure, if I don't have your email address, make sure I get your email address. I do send out monthly newsletters. So what I did for December is I followed up with an email, meeting notes, links to, someone had requested for me to share the link with the Open Meetings Act. So I did that. So any type of information I can share with you, I will. If you have not received an email from me in the last, let's say, 2 weeks, please make sure you leave, you give me your email address. If you believe you gave it to me before, let's just verify, give it to me again, make sure I have the correct email address, okay? You can come up closer if you can't see or can't hear. There's 2 chairs up here also, and there's 2 over here. I feel all alone, but okay. So it's really important that I communicate to the residents. So if you have any questions, concerns, it's very important. I have some cards. You can get business cards before you leave. It has my email address on here. So if you're on Facebook, you can find me by Amanda Stewart. Twitter is Elect Amanda. So some kind of way you should be able to contact me. If it's not through my county email address, stewarta@charlescountymd.gov. My campaign email is info@electamandastewart.com. And of course, many of you already know my website, electamandastewart.com. That's still operational. So you can always get in contact with me that way. So with that being said, I'll always start the meeting with some of my notes, some concerns, some things I'm hearing in the community, and then I open it up for questions, discussions, and so we'll get started with my list. All right, so the first follow-up I have is for Oslet Street. And so hopefully you've received some emails that I've sent regarding Oslet Street. I was really excited, and background information quickly. It's a street in Hampshire that they're going to connect with the neighboring neighborhood. And I understand that some folks would prefer that the roads to stay closed. The reason why, based on regulation, that the road needs to be open is because regulation states that a neighborhood has to have 2 access points. We know that, right? So, based on the questions and concerns that was raised at the December Town Hall meeting, what I did was I requested staff to present to me the project status. And so if you have not, I invite folks to go back to the county's website and look at, go on board docs, number 1, and look at the February 3rd board docs. And you'll notice that based on my request, the staff presented the commissioners a project update. I would also suggest that folks that are interested in Osler Street go back and review the meeting on February 3rd. Because I believe hearing the information from them and hearing some of my questions may answer some additional questions. And so one of the questions that came up was about the choke point. And if you watched the video, I asked staff about the choke point. The choke point would be used to slow down the cars entering into Hampshire. And they told me that they're in the process of getting approval, the plans for the choke point. And my follow-up question was, is this a possibility? Is it a maybe, or will the street definitely have a choke point? And I was told it's definitely going to have a choke point. It has to have a choke point, and they're in that stage where they're actually getting approval for how it's going to look and how it's going to function. The other part of the presentation that I noticed is that they wanted to make sure I understood, or we understood, that the regulation states that we need 2 access points. And then you'll notice that a question was asked that when Old McDaniel Road is completed, would that suffice for your 2nd access point? And they said yes. And so then it was stated that, okay, so once that road is completed, then we can revisit closing off the access between those 2 developments. The response was yes. Something else I mentioned to them, I said that I believe that better communication with the residents that live on Osler Street would help this process. I said, you're not talking about a whole neighborhood, you're talking about one street, you're talking about less than 20 houses. And so I asked them, I said, you need the experts, the EMS experts, to tell them why they're concerned of, if we close this road off, what would that look like if we have to come and, come to you or one of your loved ones? And so I did ask for that letter. And as of maybe a few days ago, they gave me a draft copy. I sent it back to them. I told them that I appreciated their notes or draft, but I feel that it needs to be an official document on letterhead that upon request, a resident can receive. I told them, I said, I believe residents would respect an EMS opinion. They don't want to just hear from county staff. They want to hear from an expert of why this road needs to be kept open. And so this afternoon, I told them that I was fine with the letter, but they needed to make it official. And so I told them that if anybody tells me today that they want the letter, I can surely email it to you, or if you want to send me an email or county to the commissioner's office, an email asking for the letter, you can get it that way. So that's for whomever who wants it. And lastly, on Osler Street, staff said that Old McDaniel Road is not going to be funded until next fiscal year. And so the question was, well, how can we get the project started now? And they said that we could do the preliminary part of the planning. They told us how much money that would take. And so I believe, if I'm understanding the process correctly, I will speak to Commissioner Murphy tomorrow about making an agenda request to ask for funds to be moved from one project that's not really on the horizon, that's not going to happen, to try to see if we can move funds so we can start the Old McDaniel now instead of next fiscal year. And of course, when I get a follow-up or get my answer, then I can follow up with whomever who wants, wants the information. And I'll make sure I include it in my next newsletter. So, that's my update for Osler Street.
You can respond.
Sure.
Well, I wrote a letter to the commissioners because I felt that the February 3rd presentation was a one-sided presentation, and I'm surprised they have not come back to answer these questions. And some of the questions were, when you said a choke point, that was great, but no one's saying where it's located. If it's located on the Hampshire side, the two houses that are on the end will not be able to park in front of their own houses, let alone when they have to pull out of their driveways. From a meeting we had back in, I think it was July, when we met up with Commissioner Kelly and some of the other staff members, and also the developer, our understanding was going to be on his side with just a little bit maybe on Hampshire.
Okay.
So my concern is, as much as we've been told things, it seems to really, I hate to say the word, we're screwed, always on Hampshire side. And what makes me mad is that those homes aren't even developed. Our homes have been there for 25 years and should not interfere with what we have to deal with. Another question we had was, we don't understand why that gate cannot stay closed. We know the two access points, we understand that. But to us, that gate should be closed until they can get over Daniel Road because of the children who have to walk to school. That Wade is the second largest elementary school there. Then you have Westlake. Those kids have to walk, and to have over 1,200 cars coming through until 2 years from now to potentially hit one of our children makes no sense at all. You sit there and say you have to have two access points, but Autumn Hills and Constitution Hills have a gate, which I sent a picture to you guys, showing that it's gated off, has been gated off for 8 years, and they're waiting on a, what do they call it, a building permit? And I think a building permit over a child's life makes no sense. I don't know, when I looked it up on the internet, in the newspaper, there was a statement, I can look it up, I don't have it with me, on the particular date that it was printed out from the newspaper, that Jason Grove stated that the gate was to be left up until all the building permits were done before that gate was to come down. So I don't understand how it's okay to have a gate over there for potential building permit according to what the newspaper said. But when we're talking about a walk to school neighborhood with 5-year-olds walking to school.
Right.
And over 12, and this is your guys is telling us, over 1,200 cars coming through there daily.
Right.
And we can't keep a gate open or closed until at least that other point is open.
And I'm well aware of the community, I used to live in Hampshire.
Right.
And so what I would appreciate is, based on my notes, the two issues you just raised were not included in my first email to staff and discussion with staff. So if you can email me the names of those two neighborhoods or is that in the letter that you just sent?
That's that letter that I sent back in, let's see, when I saw the meeting on,
it was February
3rd, the
3rd.
meeting, and I probably gave that letter maybe February 7th.
Okay, I have that one. Let me go back to those 2 points and have that discussion. But I understand what you're saying.
Because everything Jason said that sounded wonderful and there's no point in keeping that road closed was only one-sided. And I turned around and wrote you guys a letter to say, well, when you talk about this, you didn't think about this. When you talk about this, it was, I know you're aware of it, but like Murphy and.
They are, we're all aware. I've talked to the other commissioners about it. So I'll go back to your letter. I did see your letter, and I'll talk to staff about some of the additional points that